Hey everybody, welcome back to our final discussion on Better Call Saul, potentially. Just watched the finale and got to give our thoughts on that and maybe some greatest hits, overall highlights of the show, maybe some just general discussion around the show too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's kick it off with the episode, I guess. Saul gone.
Yep.
Man,
15 years of the greatest storytelling ever told has come to an end.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I felt it yet.
No?
I felt like the moment like before I started the episode, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to start it. Like,
Yeah.
just because like once I started, it's gonna end, and then
That's funny you
that's
should
where we
mention that
are.
because AMC Plus had that same mentality. It crashed because so many people were trying to,
Oh,
get
really?
on.
Wow.
And I had 10 minutes of sheer anger and panic because I thought I wasn't going to be able to watch it. So I just bought the episode on Prime because
Wow.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not missing this opportunity to finish this at this moment right
Wow.
now at 8 o'clock
Nice.
at night.
Yeah, I watched it maybe like an hour or two later, so I was like
Yeah.
still the same night, but a little bit behind. But I was like, I need to watch it tonight, man. I'm not gonna.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait till tomorrow. So.
Yeah. No, that was not an option. Watching it coming in 10 minutes late I had a meltdown.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've debated already on just buying the whole season on
oh
Amazon
yeah,
because I mean I have AMC Plus too, and it's bullshit that you can't watch the first half now.
oh yeah,
It's
it's.
terrible.
I'm hoping the box set comes out soon, so I don't have to buy the digital.
Yeah,
You know,
I've made it
It-
now a goal like to get the whole box set of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad because I don't have that one yet.
yeah,
So
I have the DVDs. I want the Blu-rays now just because they look nicer and But
yeah,
I've been watching the DVDs of Breaking Bad actually.
I actually already just started the first episode again of
Yeah,
Breaking
I just
Bad.
got on season 2.
Oh
I'm on
really?
Peekaboo. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, I think I will listen to the podcast along with it and watch it
Yeah.
again. I
Yeah.
mean, once I watched the finale of Better Call Saul, I was like, man, what next? And like, I like a lot of people probably, I felt the urge to start Breaking Bad again,
Oh
like
yeah.
because of it, and also I needed another show, like
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
I think a lot of people did, and I did also, and
Oh yeah.
I'll
My
probably go
buddy,
through it.
he texted me, I think it was the Sunday, and he said, "Hey, I'm already started the Breaking Bad rewatch. I can't wait, I can't wait till after Monday." I was like, honestly, I did too. So,
Yeah,
no judgment there. But yeah,
yeah,
Breaking Bad, it's like you need something, I don't know, to fill this void now. And it's Breaking Bad, the whole universe is timeless. I mean, it hasn't aged, in my opinion. It's
no.
great.
I think that's what makes these shows both so fantastic is that they do feel timeless, or that they will be like they're considered art right now, but I don't think these shows will ever lose their luster or
No,
anything that they've ever like went for. I don't think it'll ever lose its power. Like
I don't think so either. Yeah.
it's weird. Like other shows, maybe like the drama will fall off or something like that, but these shows are just so like artfully crafted that
Mhm.
like they're just not gonna they're never gonna fall off. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean like you said, artfully crafted. I mean the attention to detail, the passion that they put into these projects. It's unmatched.
It's
So
clear. It's definitely
yeah,
clear. But
it's great.
should we get into the final episode and kind of just go through our thoughts on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
it.
So what did you think going into the last episode? How were you feeling? Where were your emotions?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't really want to start it. I don't know. It's just it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
the show has meant a lot to me personally, and just what I believe is like good taste in film and just
Yeah.
storytelling, and like you can tell when I listen to the interviews with the creators, these are the people that I would work with, I would want to work with, and they're so like dedicated and focused, and they don't like sacrifice. They want to please their audience, but they don't sacrifice for their audience. They only are
Yeah.
there to like do justice to the characters and story
Right.
and have fun. Like it's just all encompassing one of the best things I've ever witnessed. And so I mean, it was very hard, obviously, to know its ending. I'm glad that we were here live to witness it, like in the
Oh
episode.
yeah.
Like watching it weekly felt really special. So it was nice in that regard. But
Yeah. For
opening
sure.
scene when like the flashback with Bagman, like that
Yeah.
episode, like it just brought me I don't know, like the somberness with that scene specifically too brought it to a place of like, wow, this is gonna be it. Like
Mhm.
just their discussion, they're looking back on it now, but I don't know, they're still going forward with it. So I don't know. It was hard, but I was excited still, obviously, to see the end. I don't know. What were you
Definitely.
like?
Yeah, no, I mean, Breaking Bad is what strikes my passion for wanting to do this myself. I wanted to write. I mean, I've always liked writing. I used to write stories, and my fifth grade teacher would read them to the class, but that was fifth grade me.
Nice.
But yeah, she really gave me a big head in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like Breaking Bad. Seeing that freshman year in high school, I was like, this is what I want to do. So Breaking Bad has a special place in my heart, and now Better Call Saul, it all coming to an end, and so wonderfully woven together within the Breaking Bad universe and how it complements it so well.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it was an emotional day just because I spent all day at work. There was a special training program, but all I could think about was Better Call Saul. I wanted to get home.
Yeah.
I wanted to fire it up. Like I said, I had a meltdown so much so that I purchased the episode when I could have just waited a couple more minutes probably and got it
It's
for
like,
free.
fuck
But
it.
I just, yeah, it's means a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
It's an important moment. I don't get choked up over a lot of things, but like I don't know, for some reason something about this gets me a little fired up.
Wow.
It took me back to when I started Breaking Bad. It was like ending, so the last episode was coming up,
Yeah.
and then me and my mom were trying to catch up in time. So like that night that it aired, we had, obviously, DVR was a thing back then, so we DVR'd all the episodes up until that point because AMC would run them continuously. And so on a school night, which is unheard of at my household at least, we were up till like 2 or 3 in the morning catching up and then watching that final episode. And it was just kind of like, I don't know, it was good. Good feeling.
That is
So,
good that you caught up. I watched it all after the fact, maybe a few weeks after it ended, strangely,
Yeah.
but like I binged it all, and it was a fantastic series. But like when Better Call Saul happened, I think a moment like that where I crossed a point where I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna be in on this forever. I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Very important part in my life, and obviously many others. So
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
felt good going into it. And so
Yeah.
let's get into it.
Yeah, but that opening scene I thought was. I mean, a lot of these flashback scenes in this final episode were just perfect, but that opening scene I thought just did so much for me. Like, it's like these are our two main leads in this show, like Mike
Yeah.
and Jimmy, and we finally, like, it's nice that we get to share a scene together at the end of the show.
Mhm.
And then they're just like at this oasis in the middle of the desert. It's just like two people like sharing a moment in the middle of the fucking like crazy shit their lives are in.
Right.
Just
Right.
like a little checkpoint where they can stop and just talk. And I mean, it set up the motif of like the time machine in this last episode, which at first I was like, man, what a pretty basic question to ask, like as your like final question or whatever of the show. But the way it develops over the episode was just so genius. And this was the start of it. And you get to see Mike's like wholesome reaction of like, it's like about family, but then it's also about like going back to the moment where he first became corrupt.
Right.
And
The decisions you make, the roads you go on.
yeah, and it's like you get that side of you. I mean, we know who that's what Mike is. He actually cares deep down about his family, about his like ideals
Right.
and stuff. And then just like the heartbreak of like Jimmy's response to be like, I'd go back and like invest in Warren Buffett's company, right? When he like
Yeah.
Dave Porter's the composer. I think he's been doing it since Breaking Bad at the beginning.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
he just had like a few like simple notes at that moment that just broke down how sad it was. Like Jimmy's just focused on like the wrong things his whole life,
Yeah.
and it's like he's doomed himself. Like, and you see it in that moment. Like he can't stop, and like he only cares. Like he says, "What's it? What money? What else?" Like.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows that there's other things, but he fights himself so much on it, and that show. I mean, that scene was just a great scene, and it was encompassing of both those characters' journeys and what they care about, and
Definitely.
it was great. I thought.
And like for these flashbacks, as the episode progresses and we go to these flashbacks, they felt more like, it's kind of a wake up call when Carol Burnett turns him in. So it feels like he's reminiscing. These are his memories that he's having, and he's going through this journey of the process of him, slowly going through lockup and all this stuff. He's having these memories in those particular moments, and I don't know, kind of the wake up call that he somewhat needed that pays off, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's what I took him as. I just felt like we were in his head, and he was thinking about these moments during these moments that were happening
I
to
can
him.
see
Like,
that. Yeah.
right, and the regrets that they have like you said, Mike was a little bit more um human in a way where he was just like, yeah, I care about my family, and Jimmy was just like, yeah, we need money because that's what's important, fuck
Yeah.
family. But I mean, coming from Jimmy's perspective, his family's always let him down,
Hmm.
So,
What
and
else? Like that's
right,
all he's got. Is his drive, his goals. So
exactly. So, and that takes you back to that scene. One of my favorite scenes is when he tells that little girl, hey, you are always going to be this person, and people
yeah,
are
you're
always
gonna
going to
cut
tell you can't do
corners.
it.
You're gonna
Right.
yeah.
So,
He's imparting what he thinks is the right wisdom.
right,
But
right.
it's just about his own specific
Yeah,
views. And but you can't like fault him because that's what he is. Like you said, that's who he is, and that's what he was formed
yeah,
to be. And that's why the show's so great. Is they
yeah,
take that character to its fruition. Like, and that's just great to see. But yeah, then it just the great. I mean, the use of flashbacks throughout this whole last season has been great, but I think this episode really did nail it with their use of when they did them,
yeah.
and it also brings back like the RV like stuff with the flashbacks a few episodes ago with Breaking Bad.
Hmm.
Those flashbacks seem more important now too because they play a pivotal role in like the story of this last
Oh yeah,
episode with like when he meets them when the night he meets them he goes into that a couple times. So
yeah,
even when the flashbacks seemed like they were just like fan servicey a few episodes ago, they mean so
yeah.
much now because it's like you needed to see that for the end of this story.
Right.
So it just makes so much
And
sense.
and that's what's great about like these writers is that they put stuff in there where you think they're pointless, but I mean, there's always going to be a payoff. So
Right.
like, if you give up hope, like some people who are like, oh, where can they possibly be going with this, or this is fan service? No, it's put in there for a specific reason.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a purpose for doing things. They might say all the time in their insider podcast, oh, we didn't think about this or something, but like you had to have,
They know how valuable like screen time is or just like scene
Yeah.
time. So like they're not going to waste that. They know it has to be impactful and meaningful to the story
Right.
overall. And yeah,
And
I
they
mean, go ahead.
oh they care about the viewers, so like
Yeah.
they're not going to put something in there that's going to waste your time,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So
For sure. But yeah, then it just kind of jumps back to the Saul on the Run present day shit.
yep.
I laughed out loud. It was like a great line for Carol Burnett. The oh please get him.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I think a lot of viewers. It depends on how you feel or whatever, but I'm sure a lot of people want to see him get caught. Some people
Yeah.
don't, and that's just a great line for the audience. To if you're
And
on
it was
board, you're gonna really love it. If not, I found it funny overall anyway. Just because I did agree with it, but I don't want him to get caught.
yeah,
Type of
right.
thing.
And the thing is too is like you're kind of anticipating this giant chase scene that's going to happen throughout this whole, he's going to go through the tick points to where, oh, he's going to go find Kim, trying to do all this stuff
Yeah,
on the run
vacuum
constantly, but
repair shit.
right. But
Hmm.
alas, they had other
Yeah, it
plans,
ends
better
pretty
plans.
quick. No, I think it was smart the way it all happened because I
Yeah,
mean, a different show would have ended the final scene on him being like caught,
yeah,
But that's
right,
not what the show needed to do. It needed to go through the legal process after the
right,
fact if you get caught, and because that's what this all has been about, like the logistics and the inner workings of the legal system, and
right.
like just to see him get caught is not. That's the Walt ending. Like this isn't
Yeah,
the Jimmy
this
ending.
is this is about justice,
Hmm.
and it being served. It's a little bit. It's like Breaking Bad. You kind of expected that flashy ending, the shoot 'em, the mechanical
The ingenuity.
weaponry.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But that's Walt. He
Hmm.
does stuff like that. Jimmy does law.
Yeah.
He does courtroom stuff,
Right.
and that's where he's in his element.
And that's
So this
where
is just
the show ends with a giant courtroom climax, and
right.
that's
Exactly.
where it needed to end. I mean,
Yeah.
they knew
So
where they needed to be, like the situations they needed to be at the end, and then
right.
they let the characters make the decisions in those situations. But
Right.
yeah, I thought it was a good throwback too. I mean, when he's on the run, like jumping out the window, the helicopter, like it
Yeah.
just shows his level of like notoriety. But then him jumping back into the dumpster, good throwback to season one.
Yep.
It's like just as desperate too. Like I mean, obviously a way more desperate situation, but he feels just as desperate. Like
Yep.
it's just so sad and it's so gross and him like losing the diamonds. You're just like, dude,
So
what the
desperate.
fuck are you doing, man? Like I don't know. Yeah, it's just sad to see, and then it ends. Finally, he's actually caught.
Yep. Anybody home? He comes peeking out of the.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That was good, and then like I said, I just expected. I don't know. I kind of expected him to be on the run a little longer, but
Hmm.
I'm glad we weren't. It was a good. I feel like that was a good. That gave me enough. The chase
Yeah.
scene was good enough, and now we're into what we really needed.
Hmm. And I
So
mean, this show, the last 6 episodes or whatever, have done a really good job of just like making you like wonder what's coming next, or you don't really know what to expect. And that was just
yeah,
another moment you're like, oh shit, he's caught. Like, wow. And then like what's next? So like they just do a good job of like anticipating your expectations and then giving you enough of it and then like pushing you into the place where you actually needed to be.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it was really good.
definitely.
Yeah, and he's finally locked up. It's like it's finally like the end of the road feeling, like
Yeah,
mm.
he's his first thing is his first reaction, similar to Gus. He calls up his Cinnabon.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, he's like
tells.
you might need a new manager.
So it's
Yeah.
similar. Him and Gus have similar priorities, even though they've never met.
Yeah, that was true.
So
Yeah. I thought that was funny. He has like nobody else to call though, too.
yeah.
So he's like, I guess we'll call Cinnabon, right?
Guess I'll tell him I won't be in for work.
Yeah.
Do
But
him the
then
courtesy.
that led to I think like one of the best scenes in the episode, but also one of the best scenes in terms of like acting for Bob Odenkirk. I think when he's like pacing around the jail cell, he's like,
Yeah.
"This is how you get caught. This is how you get caught." And he like punches it, and then sees the writing about the lawyer on the wall.
My lawyer will ream your ass.
Yeah, and then he's like has a maniacal like breakdown in laughter, and it's almost like Wall's scene where he does the same thing in
Yeah.
what's that episode?
And not Osmandias. End times, I think, or
Yeah,
crawl space. Crawl
crawl
space.
space. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
And
just like the way that evolved, it's like
yeah.
does he have a plan? Is he just going like insane right now, or is he like he's like it's all catching up to him? And obviously it leads to him like needing another phone call, so he's got some type of plan. But
It was interesting because that's like his personalities that we've been with throughout the show. That's Gene obviously pacing around, and then that laughter he slowly turns into Saul, and then he becomes Saul, where he's like back in control. He's back on the horse. This is a cooler head. So I
yeah,
thought that was
yeah,
the flip of the switch
he's
there.
got the plan now for what to do next, and
Right.
yeah, it's gonna end with him on top, as he says.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but that then it leads to Bill Oakley, which did not expect him to play such a major role in the finale, but
Yeah.
I think it made sense why he would call him, and it's nice that it's like a mirror to the pilot because Oakley's in the pilot and he's like kind of a major antagonistic type of relationship to Jimmy at the start, and so we get
Yeah.
to kind of echo that in the finale, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good comic relief too for at the end here. He had a lot of moments for that too. So
It was a nice touch. Nice callback as well as bringing a minor character in to play an important role. So,
yeah,
but still be minor to Saul because clearly it was just his consulting. His
yeah.
consulting.
He
agreement
basically
or
just
whatever.
needed a face
Yeah,
next to
get him
him.
on the
Yeah,
right.
because half the time that like Jimmy is even saying anything, like you can tell that Oakley has no idea that he was going to say it, or he doesn't know how to
Yeah.
like do next with it. Like so he's just kind of there acting like he knows what's going on, but he's
Yeah.
like taking for a ride too.
And how when he's like, "Who's gonna pay for this?"
Yeah.
Or whatever,
You
he's like,
are.
"You are." You're gonna get so much press
Yeah,
and
it's a career
notoriety for this. So
Yeah. But that led to one of I think the best scenes. I'm gonna say that so many times, but like one of the best scenes was him versus like the board or the
yeah.
Castellano or type of guy. And I mean the reveal of Marie coming back.
Yep.
Thought that was really nicely done. Just walking down the hall, you can see her immediately. I was like, holy fuck, that's her. And then
Yep.
she turns back. You're like, yep. But it
That's
makes
exactly what I said. I said, "Oh, it's Marie.
yeah.
She's back."
Yeah.
You know.
It makes sense
So.
that she'd be here. Like
Yep.
at the end of Saul getting caught, she wants to see the justice firsthand or whatever.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
She never really got that because Walt just kind of got away.
Yeah.
I mean, all she has is her sister, but they probably don't speak anymore. But
Right.
yeah, this is her last sense of closure. So it was a good point to bring her back. I don't know.
Yeah,
It wasn't really fan service. It kind of needed to happen.
it needs to, but it was a nice surprise too. Like
Yeah, it was.
it was nice to see her, and it felt like the homage to the original story, you know, at the end, and it
Yeah.
was nice. So, but yeah, that scene I thought was really really well done. Also, I just like that scene kind of showed me it was like just a lesson on creating like complex like not a complex story in the scene, but just like complex like emotions and like different types of like momentum shifting in a scene, because
Yeah.
like that scene starts one way and then it like goes into Jimmy like basically relaying the first night he met Heisenberg, and it's like I was so scared I had a gun to my head, and like you can see that like Marie believes him, and like
Yeah.
it's like wow, yeah, maybe like he could just sell this, and then he like immediately drops that facade once he knows he has him beat,
Yeah.
and then it like turns a different way, and then at the end of that scene they have the upper hand again because he thinks he's going to use like Howard Hamlin's murder, but
Right.
they have it. So it's just like that just showed me a lot like the importance of like shifting momentum in scenes and like shifting power, and like because that scene was so engaging, but it's so long though too, which is like surprising because most scenes would get boring if it's in the same they're sitting in the same
Yeah.
chairs, you know, they're doing the same thing. But just the way that it developed, obviously it's like our main character at the end of his journey, so it's more compelling, but just the way the scene turns and our characters motivations start to be revealed throughout, it's just great writing is what I'm trying to
Oh
say.
yeah.
But
No, definitely. Great writing, great acting. I mean, like you said, I was engaged throughout that whole. That was is one of the best scenes I think. Just because it doesn't feel like a long scene, just the way it's playing out. Because it's just like another. I guess at this point it's just a Saw scene, but it's like a Slip and Jimmy scene. He's pulling one over on these guys.
yeah,
He whittled down life plus 186 to seven and
seven
a
and a
half
half
years
years yeah, that's
with
crazy, man.
golf lessons and maybe Bluebell mint chocolate chip ice cream
All right.
every Friday. You
Yeah,
know.
I mean,
So
he's the legend of Saul. He's like
right.
on that level of Bernie Madoff. He even says it himself. Like in this universe, he is probably one of the most wanted people in the U.S. or the world. You know, like
Yeah.
so. It's just cool. He knows he's at the top, and he still
Right.
can still pull the moves even at that level.
Definitely. And like he knows all these things and he's so good at it and he's so calm and he's just like he's in his element clearly.
Yeah,
And like they mention his sentence and it's like it doesn't even phase him because he knows like
he's
I
gonna
can
get
handle
out.
this,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, that whole like you were saying the switching the dynamic of the tone and how he tells that compelling story of how scared I mean, I was convinced. I'm like, was he actually scared? Did he
That
actually feel like he had to do
that
this?
is what happened though too. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't have to lie that much, but
Right. He throws in a little bit of that truth in with his lies, and then
mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, he was the reason Heisenberg was a thing. Like they weren't going to go through him, but he saw potential, huge money potential, right?
Yeah.
So like he had me convinced, like, oh, maybe he was scared the whole time, and then of course he just drops it immediately. He's like, I only need
Yeah.
one juror to believe me,
Yeah.
and then of course that's when they're like, well, shit, we probably all believed him right now. So
Yeah.
how hard could it be for him to convince
Somebody else
a
like that.
jury, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Nah,
it's
he's got the ultimate moves. I mean, it was nice to have that one kind of like final gotcha scene for. I mean, there's more to come, obviously,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like it's just yeah, he's at the end of the rope, but he can still put on the moves, you know.
Yep, definitely. And is this when the flashback to Walter and
Yeah.
him are in
Yeah.
the vacuum guys?
I think this is my favorite scene of the episode, like by far. I don't know.
So natural bringing Walt back in, and like it was nice they gave Jesse his own little scene, right, with Kim and that. But this scene also was nice. Walt and Jimmy, you get to see a little bit more. Again, adds more, complements the Breaking Bad universe even
Yeah.
more. But
It
it just
mirrors that
felt
scene too. It's like with Jesse
right,
and Kim, those are the two like side characters, the wholesome characters of the show, and they share a scene. And now it's our two leads, our two
right,
like driven by their like bad goals or whatever, but they
yeah.
can reflect and like talk again now. So
Right, and when he asks him the same question, the if you had a time machine, Walt immediately says, "I wouldn't sell my stake in gray matter." And it's like after all that, you just saw your brother-in-law die, get shot in the head, and your main concern still is your pride with gray matter.
I mean, that's where it all
Damn.
started for Walt, though. Is
Oh
like
yeah.
I think that's where his like, because all of Breaking Bad is basically just his ego getting way out of hand,
Yeah.
and like it all started with him losing the multi-million-dollar company that he started, and
Right.
like that probably ate away at him for 30 years, and then
Yeah.
Breaking Bad, like so yeah, it makes sense. It is like definitely in line with selfish Walt, like.
Right. Right.
But that scene, I mean, I think we said it in the last time with Bryan Cranston, but that dude cannot lose that
Oh
character,
no.
man. It was
Slips
fantastic.
right in.
Yeah, like the
Down to
way
how pissed off he was about
he's
like the stupid questions about the time machine.
said, "Stay in your lane." That
Yeah.
was so fucking great. But I don't know. And then I thought it was one of the best. It was like so smart the way that Walt like deconstructs the time machine question on him, and it's
Yeah.
basically like it's great that it's Walt because he just doesn't handle bullshit well, or whatever. But it's like he's basically like, just if we're talking about regrets, you're not talking about you're like if you're gonna talk about regrets, just say regrets, like.
Yeah. Right.
And that's basically what the writers are getting down to. Is it's not about the time machine, it's about regrets, and it was just so well like transitioned into the theme from like the time machine to actual regrets because
Right.
it was Walt, but also because it's like that's where we needed to get, and we got there in a perfect way. I was just like, this was just fantastic, I thought. But
Yeah. No, I agree, and I agree with what Walt's saying. Cut the bullshit about the time machine. Like, tell me if you want to ask me about my regrets, just fucking ask
all
me.
right, yeah, and
So
then
yeah.
even then Saul can't like muster
Nope.
up the correct like the true response that he wants to say. He's just talking about like how he fucked up his knee or something, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and then
With this.
him, like Walt calling him out at the end. He's like, "Oh, you've always been like this." That
Yeah.
was like so
You've always been
savage,
this
dude.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Great scene. And
fantastic scene.
yeah, it felt so natural. And I swear to God, if I see anything about Walter's head being big, because it looked normal to me,
Perfect.
you
I
know,
was like, did he actually shave his head again, or I don't think he
I don't,
did.
I don't think he did because I don't. If there's, did you say for like the after credits thing where he takes off the ski mask and he's got his hair still? So I
Yeah,
figured,
yeah.
but yeah,
Maybe they
so yeah,
filmed it after and he shaved it after, but I don't think you would want to do that, and it also would like reveal that he
yeah,
went there
right,
and filmed too. So I wonder what they
right.
did. But
But yeah, I
yeah,
thought it was
great.
perfectly integrated. He doesn't look a day over 52, so
Dude, he's gonna always be that character. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
And not that he can't like lose it or anything, but he just will never. He won't be able to lose it if he wants to come back to it. I would say. I don't
right,
know. Like I
right.
can see him as different characters, but this is one that he can always play. It seems like I don't know.
And like going back to restarting it, like one of the messages between me and my buddy was, Bryan Cranston can act, man. Like even in those first episodes, it's just I don't know. He's compelling. He's
Yeah, he
great.
really is. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I just rewatched the pilot, and I mean, that's so well written though too. That pilot
oh
is
yeah,
fantastic, but like Cranston obviously carried so much of that entire show, and for a
oh
good
yeah.
reason.
No, I don't know if I told you the story about how I tried to get my mom to start Breaking Bad, to get her into this universe, and she refused to. So I watched like the whole first season because I went out and bought it, and then one day I was coming home from school. I walked in, I heard my mom cackling. I go in, she's watching the pilot to Breaking Bad, and I'm like, "This is what I've been telling you. This is great." So I'm trying to do the same thing with Better Call Saul. She hasn't watched it yet, so
I'm trying to get my mom to watch it too. She watched Breaking Bad. Both my
yeah.
parents did, but they don't really want to do Saul. I'm just like,
Why? It's brilliant.
yeah.
But anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
little side to it.
Oh,
Just
you're good. Yeah. But then it's him on the plane. Like
yeah,
he's getting like extradited to Albuquerque or whatever. And this is the scene where I've watched it twice now, so I'm wondering what you think also. But do you think like it was always his plan to reveal or like confess on the stand, or it seemed
I
like
think
on the plane he kind of discovered what his end game would be? But that's just where I stand.
my thoughts were on the plane. He was still set on, throwing Kim, you know, under the bus and him getting his 7.5 years or whatever, and all that jazz. I think it was the moment that he saw her that he decided that, you know, okay, Jimmy needs to come back because that's the only person he has left. You know, the only person he actually ever really cared about.
Yeah.
Besides his brother, he cared about his brother, but it was more of like a familial, like I need to take care of you type thing.
Hmm.
I feel like that was more so because that's all he could get with his brother. He couldn't get on that other connection. So I think seeing Kim was kind of the thing that clicked for me. I mean, I could be. This is just my feeling because
Yeah.
him walking into with his shiny suit on, he still saw, you know. But then when he looks at Kim and sees her in the courtroom, he's like, "That's the one juror I need to convince, but I need to convince her that I'm still me."
Hmm.
So
That's fair. Yeah.
that was my thought. I thought up until that moment that he was going to get away and get his 7.5 years.
Hmm.
But I think when he saw her, that was when the switch flipped. And
Gotcha. Yeah, I
yeah,
could see that. Yeah. I
but
think I don't know. I just wonder because he clearly wanted to get her in the courtroom, and
yeah,
to do that, he had to like lie about what happened or whatever.
true.
So I was wondering, like, I wonder when along this journey he decided this is what he would do, but I guess we don't
Yeah,
fully know, and there could have been a lot of points along where he
yeah,
fully like he's an impulsive guy, so it could have happened
right.
anywhere.
And that's why I feel because like the last time they saw each other was the divorce. When she came in, he signed those papers.
Yeah,
So that's his last view and
sleazy.
idea, and so like I feel like seeing her again just kind of maybe rekindled those emotions that he actually cared for. And
Yeah,
again, being arrested and on the spot here is like kind of a wake up call. And I don't know.
yeah, I
I,
could see
I,
that.
I could be wrong,
No,
you
I
know,
get that. Yeah.
but that was my
Um.
vibes that I got from it
Mhm.
because it still felt like he was Saw
Yeah,
walking in.
for
So
sure. It was nice to see Kim at the lawyer's office, like go back in.
yeah,
Like at first you think she's going there for like advice or legal help, but then she's there to help out and give a hand, and it just gives hope for after the series of what we know, like
yeah,
in my head canon, I kind of assume she goes back to the law, but
yeah.
it
And
leaves it open.
the way the way that she comes alive when she answers that phone call too, like
Right. It's just
the
like
phone's ringing, she runs over there, clicks the buttons, and it's
back in
just
the zone.
immediate. She was no longer deceased. Like
Yeah.
she's back,
Back in her
So,
element, filing
yeah,
stuff, filing away.
right. So that was good. That
Um,
was a cool. That was a pretty powerful moment in my opinion.
yeah, I thought it
Kind of
was
cool.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's nice that the place if she works there, I mean, she might not or whatever, but that's a place where clearly they're helping people, and
Right.
that's all she's
It's
really wanted to do. So,
right, exactly. And like she kind of came to peace. Like her confessing, it was kind of her way of coming to peace with the
hmm.
doing the right thing. Because I feel she left the law because she crossed the line. So she still crossed the line, but she's come to peace with the term. So that's her way of I don't know
Yeah, she's coming back
being
to
okay with
life.
it. Right. So yeah,
Yeah, but then
pretty cool.
I mean that leads she gets called by I forget the name of the girl, the
Yeah, the blonde,
DA or
strawberry
yeah,
blonde.
yeah. But that just leads her to go to the court
Right.
room, and I mean that leads to the climax of the whole show. I don't, what I'm saying, like him confessing on the stand, like I mean that's everything, right? Like
Yeah.
so I don't know, great scene there.
I d- when does the Chuck flashback happen
I think it's
or
after that.
memory?
I think
Oh,
it's
is it?
after that
Okay.
scene, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like we said before, it's just nice that he has to pay like legally for everything he's done. Like Walt got the heroic like death ending. Jesse got the ending where he's like off on his own. He got
Yeah.
his freedom, and then Saul's is like locked up. Like
Yeah.
he's like right in the middle, and it's just nice. Like that's the dichotomy of those three main leads. I'd
Right.
say is it's deserving of where he needed to be at the end. But
And like that scene where he's confessing is immediately Oakley stands up. I'd like to remove myself from this case. Not a chance.
not a chance.
Immediately he's like,
Yeah, that was
"God damn it,
hilarious,
Saul,
dude. Yeah.
you fucked me, man." And
Yeah.
then the other guy was like, "No, we'd really like him to
We
continue."
we have no problem with him
Yeah.
continuing. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. But that's I mean it's just so smart to like he goes up there, he doesn't have to say one word, he could get 7.5 years, but then he wants
yeah.
to get up in the stand and um yeah, it's like he's gonna start with the same lie that you heard earlier in the episode, and then it
Yep.
just shifts again to just complete honesty. And yeah, that's what, like Oki's like, I just want to quit. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when he confesses, when he says, "Yeah, I did this thing to Chuck," and he ended up killing himself over it, and Bill's like,
That
"That
wasn't a
wasn't even a
crime.
crime."
I was like, yeah,
He's
it
like,
was.
"Yes, it was."
Yeah.
But
Him
yeah,
admitting to everything was just so great. Like so cathartic for him and for the audience. I mean, one, he
I
just
know.
immediately like throws away like what he said to Kim was a lie, you know.
Yeah,
But then the way that he like confesses to building Walt's empire and like selfishly doing all this stuff, and he says he was indispensable. Like he couldn't
yeah.
have done it without him. Like that's obviously him like flexing or whatever, but admitting to
Oh yeah,
everything. But to me, it was like saying that like the writers are saying like he's an equal part to Walter White. He's Better Call Saul is an equal part to the Breaking Bad. Like
oh yeah.
he's just as indispensable now, like together with Walt. Like these
Right.
two are. I was just I think I felt like the reverence for both those characters in that moment,
And
kind of.
how do you? It's interesting too because Walt's whole regret thing was, oh, I regret giving my share, giving up my stake in the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now Walt thinks he's he's the danger. He's the one driving this train. But in reality, I don't know. Saul's in
Could
there
have been
with you. I
Saul.
mean, without Saul, he would be nothing.
Yeah.
So how do you think Walter's pride feels beyond the grave when he goes up there and starts confessing and saying
All
like
right.
he built him,
Yeah. Saul had
without
to
me, he's nothing.
Saul had to take a little bit of that credit away from him,
Yeah.
just because he wanted it. But
So that was pretty
yeah,
sweet.
and then he like looks back and sees like Kim isn't like fully satisfied, and he's
Yeah.
gotta give more. And him like breaking down about Howard, like finally like talking about it and admitting to it, I think was one of the best moments for Bob Odenkirk's acting or whatever. This episode
Mm.
is like just the sadness, like clearly like ingrained sadness that he feels about Howard's death.
Yeah.
It's like nice that he finally brought it to the surface, like a little bit because we hadn't seen it since he
Right.
tried to shove it all down.
Yeah.
And then that leads to Chuck, which is like the ultimate like regret that he has, I would assume, with the next scene because it cuts to him and
Yeah.
Chuck. Like that's the one thing that he really messed up on, I would say.
That's like what stems most of his problems, is that like what Don Eladio says to Gus, you have a lot of hate in your eyes. A little bit's okay, but and that's like Jimmy, driven by that hate, that
He compared himself to
anger,
Chuck too much to
right?
about like hit Chuck's ideals, like squashed his, and
Right.
he had to fight back against it so hard. And
And
that's why he became who he was, kind of. So
yeah, and maybe if he would have just hung around and just shot the shit with Chuck, maybe things would have been a little different. Because
yeah,
that's before the first episode. That's like
like right
the
before it.
yeah, right before the first episode. Because he brings him the Financial Times. So
Yeah, that
uh,
was very smart flashback too. I mean, one, it's
yeah,
just nice to see Chuck and Jimmy again together, obviously, but
right,
I think that was a super smart way of telling the audience like this is probably the moment that Jimmy would go back to,
yeah,
like because it's like the last moment of like straight up like brotherly love together, kind of,
right,
or like they're at least Chuck is like ready to like kind of accept him or like talk with him and sit, or whatever, and
right.
Jimmy just kind of like pushes him away, thinks he's just telling him what he's doing wrong, but that seems like, and then it shows the time machine book. Like that's
Yep.
a subtle way of telling us that this is probably the time.
Yeah.
Like at least that's what I got. But
No, definitely. I think that's one of his biggest regrets is that relationship with his
yeah,
brother. So
yeah,
that's what I really liked about. That's what really got me attached to Jimmy. I think Jimmy's the best written character on TV, but that's just because I don't know. I think for me, he's just super relatable in terms of that kind of stuff. His dynamic with his brother was like any other show. This might have been boring, but like the way they create these characters and how they're molded by these type of situations is just so true.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
It feels so real and
Yeah,
justified. Yeah. And I think it was a really nice line too with Chuck. He's like says how there's no shame in going back and changing your path if you feel like it's wrong or something like that, and
right.
that exemplifies that thought of like the time machine. Like if you can
Yeah,
you can change it right now, right here, but then Jimmy says like He's like, when have you ever changed your path or something? Like he just can't stop comparing himself to Chuck, and
Yep.
that's the
And
last
here
of
we
it.
go.
Yeah, and then
And then
we
he didn't
kick
change
off the
his path.
show.
And yep.
Yeah.
Crazy. Great.
Great
Great
scene, man.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
So
that leads to the one scene that I'm not completely sold on. I don't know
is it the
what you
bus chant?
feel.
You didn't like
I
that?
like that scene a lot. It's not like I'm like, oh fuck that scene, that ruined everything. Like I don't think that at all. I think it is completely makes sense as a scene in the most sense of like the story. I just found some of like the actual like reasoning for why it was happening. I was like, I don't know if I buy this stuff. I don't know. I don't know. What did you think about it?
No, I thought it was for me. So like Saul gone. Clearly, he left Saul at the podium when he was arrested. And he's like even tells the guy, "No, I'm, James or whatever, Jimmy." But like he was worried about going to this particular prison, right? Because he would get eaten alive in there.
Yeah.
So that's why he wanted his 7 years in a cushy place with golf lessons. But Saul's always been his safety blanket. So when that guy turns around, he's like, "You're Saul, Saul Goodman or whatever." He's like, "No." But then when everybody recognizes him, it's like, okay, so now he knows I can turn this on and be safe. And these are my people,
Yeah.
These people are who respect me,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're criminals, I'm a criminal. So I don't know. It worked for me. I just felt like it was just a over the top way of expressing like he's going to be fine,
Hmm.
He's going to manage these 87 years or whatever just fine. And he's going to have all the protection he needs because these are his people.
Yeah,
So
I got that.
it was just a
I got
fun
that
over the
out of
top
that.
way of
Uh-huh.
it didn't bother me.
I get that. That's cool. It also showed that he's never gonna fully shed that Saul identity. Like he can't really always get rid of it because of how far he went.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was almost like a meta scene for like the writers and for Bob Odenkirk almost, where it's like those are gonna be like people approaching the writers and approaching Bob for the rest of their lives, being like, "Better Call Saul, Better Call Saul." Like they'll never be able to like live it down.
Right.
Not that they need to, but like that's like Odenkirk will never be able to like fully shed that character now for for people. So it felt like a somewhat like cathartic moment in the writing of just like almost like championing the series and like showing the importance in their lives or where it's at in their lives now. So that's what I felt from it a little bit too. So
yeah, no, I've read a couple of things where like, oh, this ruined it for me. Like, I don't know. I think that it was, the creators have always done comic stuff, and I just thought it was a over the top way of showing how over the top Saul always was. I mean, that's his character
and the legend.
Thing,
Yeah, he created that legend, and it's that widespread now.
I mean, his tentacles are everywhere in the criminal world.
All right.
Clearly in Nebraska, a guy from Albuquerque remembers him.
Right.
So
yeah. If the show ended on that scene, I might feel differently, but they smartly didn't end with just like a cheesy, weird scene like that. Maybe not every viewer would understand fully, because then it ends with, Saul's in jail. He's still kneading the dough. He's still like baking some bread and shit.
He's in his element, baby.
Yeah, he's still got his skills, and he's like clearly tight with everybody, like all the prisoners and stuff. He's clearly cool there. He's like making it, and then gets called by his lawyer, and this is where the show had to end for me. It was with these two, obviously, but it was a great scene at the end there.
It was. She scammed her way in, Kimmy, slipping Kimmy, still getting in.
I wonder the importance of that line to be like, it's not expired, but I made my way in or whatever. Like, I guess, like, we can talk at the end about what your headcanon is for now the rest of, like, the end of the show or, like, where it goes after. But there's a lot of, like, seeds here that could lead the audience or the viewer into different directions, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what your take is, I guess, but that one is a line that kind of makes me think some things. But
yeah,
but
I thought it was perfect. She got her way in. It was her last. I don't know if it was her last, but it was another like Jimmy's last shenanigans was getting him down to like. Kim was like, you had him down to 7.5 years. But yeah, that was pretty interesting that she was like, that's pretty badass still, So like there's still that
The
Jim and
respect or
Kim,
like the urge. That's like
right?
they're playing it at that scene. Obviously, is like the red of the cigarette is the spark in that scene. Like that's the
Yeah,
color. That's like the spark is still there type of thing. And I mean, just them sharing a cigarette. That's been a motif through the whole show since the pilot. It's such a smart decision because just like cigarettes in general, like it's the perfect metaphor for these two characters where like they're bad for you, but you still want to do it.
yeah,
It's exactly what these characters believe, and them sharing it together is so meaningful to both of them. Like what they think when they're smoking it, and also just
yeah.
like what it means for their characters overall is very very important. I'd say so. Like ending on that is perfect. I'd say just to have that metaphor for the audience.
Right. And it's like they never missed a beat after all those, years apart. It was just like she just wanted Jimmy back, you know.
The
It
actual
was
Jimmy. Yeah.
right. She wanted actual Jimmy, and when she saw him, it was kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
this is the guy I fell in love with, and like what was cool about that last scene was that they used to watch these old movies together, and they're leaning up against the wall, and now they're in black and white. I don't know. It was just full circle. This is great. It was
Yeah.
a perfect way to end the show, and the finger guns,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. It was. What did you think? What were your takeaways there that you
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a
wanted to
great way to
mention?
end it. Their shared look, like when they're
Mhm.
both caged in on different sides, like with the gap in the middle. I thought that was one of the best shots because like they're both stuck in. Jimmy's now at the extreme of being caught for all of his things, and Kim is now at the extreme of like living a very suppressed life because of all her, like she's free,
Yeah,
he's caged up, but they're both caged up in their own respective lives. I thought that was really really smart, obviously, but yeah, and then I just try to find the meaning of every shot. So like the final shot is Kim's POV basically like rounding a corner and you see like the wall like envelop Jimmy basically
hmm
and Jimmy's gone or like the last time maybe that she saw Jimmy. But it was like a white wall. I just kind of viewed it as like the harsh wall, like justice finally came to Jimmy and got Jimmy. Like it's the righteous because it's like a white coming onto Jimmy. Like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading way too much into that shit, but
no,
that's kind of what
that's
I
the
got from the
that's the point of art, man. Interpretation.
right. The final image that kind of I got with it was that. But that after I was like, man, where do these characters stand now?
Yeah,
And like a lot of people probably are, but and me and Emily went two different ways, which is understandable. But I see both sides because they laid the seeds for it being kind of interpret it your own way kind of ending.
hmm yeah,
But I kind of question if like like the ball is in Kim's court now almost to like help Jimmy. Not like
yeah,
she's like like she expected to, or that's like Jimmy's move that he's trying to do is like get her to now come back and help him or whatever. But like she just got back into law. She just like resurrected her like love and appreciation with Jimmy. I don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, she's gonna go move back and just try to get like. I don't think that happens at all. But I think like down the road, maybe she helps Jimmy out of prison early. I don't think Jimmy's spending 86 years in prison. He could die
I
in
know.
prison. I could see that as an ending in my head, but like,
Yeah,
and they never see each other again. That could be another ending. But I just like with her like coming in using the expired bar card. They're sharing the cigarette with the spark. They share that look at the end, and it's on Kim now basically to decide what what's next.
yeah,
I don't know. That's kind of what I see, but I don't know. Kim could live her life completely separate now, and that'd be fine
yeah.
too. And I could be okay with that ending too. So I don't know. What do you think?
No, yeah, I'm on similar lines. I think that him when she said, and he was like, yeah, 86 years, but good behavior. You never know. So I think that was a good way to say like, oh, well, maybe Kim's gonna stay in touch because I thought the same thing. Maybe, now since she's back into the swing of things, she's finally shed that guilt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think maybe her and Jimmy might work something to where she gets him out or he gets out early or they just stay in touch. I feel like now that she's back in his life, I
Mm-hmm.
think that she's gonna stick around and at least be that rock that he needs because clearly he needs it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think if anything, they're gonna stay in touch. I don't think, like you said, they're not gonna run off into the sunset or anything like that. But
Mm.
I think that they're bad for each other, but at the same time, Jimmy kind of needs her as like a guiding light. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I think also at the end here, I think I've always thought like Jimmy's bad for Kim, and Kim can be bad for Jimmy, but overall Jimmy's just the bad guy in the story, and Kim is like the savior to Jimmy almost, like
yeah,
so I like yeah I don't know. I just wonder too like how much Kim wants to break bad after this, again like is it a
yeah,
never-ending cycle or has the cycle ended now kind of, I guess that's left to the viewer, but
yeah. I don't think she can ever end.
yeah,
Uh, but
right.
I mean, clearly
Jimmy can't.
she sneaked in or snuck in and used her expired card. And I don't.
Hmm.
There's still that little bit of edge to her that is kind of like her aphrodisiac. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, what did you guys think? If you're listening, I mean, that's probably going to be a big discussion for your years to come, I'd say, and what you
Oh
think
yeah.
will be the true end to the story, I guess. But
So overall, what'd you think?
of the series,
Yes, as a whole, now that it's complete,
yeah,
what'd you think?
yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean it's a 10 out of 10 show. Like I think we've said it enough. Honestly, is like it's one of the best television shows ever made, but also best prequel by far ever made.
Yeah.
One of the best like things put onto screen ever made. Like
Yep.
I don't know if I could like put into words like the visual storytelling is something that should be taught in film schools. It should be taught like it should be revered. It should be like
Yeah.
it is art, like you said. Like
It's a
it
masterclass,
really like that's it. It's all there, and like some people might think like Better Call Saul is slow or like not as engaging and stuff like that, but for somebody who watches a lot of shit, watches a lot of movies and TVs, this has been the one thing that has like exceeded all like you didn't need to be this good and you've decided to be this good, and
right?
that's extremely like motivating for someone like me to see. So I
Yeah.
I needed this, and I'm glad that I was here to watch it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, I wrote down just I kind of want to just do like a little retrospective on the whole series now, and I just wrote
Yeah.
down some of my like highlights or my favorite moments, kind of, or some of the things that I wanted to talk about. Just we didn't have a full discussion on every episode of the series; we just did the end. So I kind of want to just go into why this show became so special, or what were the moments along the way, kind of that did it for you.
Yeah.
But for me, the first thing I wrote, because I tried to go through like the whole series in order,
Hmm.
so I just thought back to season one, where like they're still trying to find their footing on Jimmy's character and like how the world's gonna work and where they're going and what pace and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
one of the things that stood out the most to me and kind of made me latch on to Jimmy and to the world was like all the bingo shenanigans. Um, just him like showing how far he will go to achieve his schemes with like
Right.
layering like the metal and the balls and stuff to get the right the bingo for
Yep.
the old lady. I forget her name. Like that level of like logistical scheming was like that made me understand the levels of this character. But it all and then that also led to him breaking down after like getting so many B's in a row in
Yeah.
bingo. He like broke down and like had like a moment where he like was like freaking out or some shit. Those moments I think just added some of the comedy, some of like the offbeatedness of this show, but it
Yeah.
also provided so much of like the logistics and the heart too in those moments. Like I don't know, that one stood out to me in season one as like kind of really understanding what Jimmy's about, and how he operates, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you have any moments
Yeah. So,
season one or anything or?
so I was thinking back today all day. I'm trying to think of, I've only seen this all the way through once, and then I watched it with Sarah from season like 3 on.
Okay.
So I need to rewatched the first. So the first two seasons are a little fuzzy in my mind because
Mm-hmm.
it was a long ass time ago. But I remember when I watched them, it was immediate. I was hooked, and Jimmy's character for one. I watched it, and you brought it up in our speech class because I had watched the first season and then beginning of season two, and then came to college, so I like stopped watching it, and I was just gonna say I'm gonna binge it when it comes on Netflix, and it was in uh, Procom, I think, that summer course,
Mm-hmm.
and you brought up Better Call Saul, and you're like, yeah, you should really check it. And that day, I went to Family Video and got the DVDs and popped it in, and I'm season a day. I sat down and I just watched them, and I did
Yeah.
not move from my recliner, but it was just Jimmy's character. I think is what I latched on to first of anything
Yeah.
because of his dynamic with Chuck. And I can't remember if it was in season one where we have that flashback where Jimmy's a kid and that guy tells him there's wolves in their sheep,
Mm.
you know?
I think that might be season 2, but yeah,
Is that season
I
two?
think
That was
so.
like one of my favorite like scenes and lines that is told,
Yeah.
because it just shows in this world that they're in and even ours,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to either get pushed over or you're going to have to push people over.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what Jimmy tells that girl, So I don't know. That was,
That flashback is one of the most pivotal, like important flashbacks, as it
yeah,
was such a huge moment in Jimmy's life. I would assume,
right,
like it's the first time he's been shown that level of like wolves and sheep mentality,
right,
and like from what we know him as, like he clearly chose one way. Like
right. And that's like maybe his first scam that he ever saw. And he was just kind of like, that's what I need to do.
yeah, he's like,
That's how
wow.
I'm going to get by.
He realizes what's happening, even though his dad doesn't. Like he's
Right,
smarter. He needs to take advantage of this shit that he's realizing. Like,
right.
yeah, that was I almost I didn't write that one down, but I thought about that one. It's just such an important one, and it's one
Yeah.
that I don't ever forget. Like, because I think it informs so much of Jimmy's character.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I got hooked on was
Mm.
when I did the restart of watching them after you mentioned it, brought it back up again was Jimmy's character and his dynamic with Chuck was super relatable. And
Yeah,
I don't know, you want to root for the underdog, but then, we evolve into what Jimmy actually becomes and is kind of like you're put in a position where do I still want to root for this guy? But yeah. So yeah, that's what I remember being super
nice.
hooked on. But like you said, I think they were just trying to find their footing,
Yeah,
trying to figure out who Jimmy was. And I mean, so were we. We're trying to figure out who this character is, why do we care for him,
right.
things like that. So yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Another big highlight for me in the early seasons. Um, just knowing that Mike was a part of the storyline was a big hook, I think, for a lot of the audience and for me. Was just knowing that we will get a little bit of that like underground cartel story.
yeah, yeah.
So that was nice, but I think one of the most impactful moments in the entire show still is like 6 episodes in, and it's just Mike's story, his flashback story,
Yep.
back to Boston, I think, or wherever he's from, in
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Um, it just showed that there's like still an extremely like compelling story that we've like yet to see with these characters. It like
Hmm.
deepened Mike obviously into a thing that we've never seen before. And it just had like one of the most beautiful moments in the series with Jonathan Banks like confessing to his daughter-in-law about his son, something we
Yeah,
had never known, but it just that moment showed me that they're still like really trying to like make great dramatic moments and like compelling character moments. It's not just fun and games, even though a lot of the show is that.
yeah,
It's showing you that they're not cheapening the characters. They're making them richer. So that was a big moment for me.
yeah. No, definitely. I think having Mike in, obviously, that was like the first, some might say, fan service that this show ever gave us because we got Mike, which leads to Gus and all that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that was a huge that scene that we get to understand who Mike, where he comes from, but also the episode, the Pimento episode, where it's still you got badass Mike,
Yeah, that I
so
have that too. It's like on the flip side of that drama.
yeah,
One of my favorite moments of the early seasons is like anything with like Price, the the dude with like the
yeah,
Hummer.
yeah,
Mike like is engaged with, like in his deals. Just like him and his baseball cards, man. That just added so much like fun and so much. It brought us into the underworld too with like an offbeat character.
Yeah.
and it introduced us to Nacho and brought us into that story too. And
Right.
it was a very organic way, but also a super fun way. Like you could have went generic crime guy, but they decided to go goofy,
Right.
not as successful yet crime guy. You know, that was
Our
just really
first innocent set into the criminal underworld.
yeah.
This guy who is just trying to get his baseball card.
Just one of the baseball cards, and like that goes into like the squat cobbler shit, which is just
Yeah.
one of the best. Like just the stuff they did with Price's character, and I thought was just great. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And I think the last thing I have for season 1 specifically is Marco. At the end of season 1, Jimmy goes back to Chicago, and
Yeah.
then he like starts scheming with his old buddy Marco. And that episode, I was like, I didn't know like where the season would end or where the show would end, you know, at this moment. So like when you're watching this, he's back scheming in Chicago doing his old shit, and it was one a really great montage. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
It's like kind of them like silhouetted or
Yep.
superimposed in black or whatever, just scheming, doing random schemes and stuff like that. But yeah, it just brought a layer of like relatability, understanding to Jimmy, because now you see what his like early days were like, what his friend was like in back in that day,
Yeah.
and then it also brought like the heartbreak at the end of that with Marco obviously dying, and then kind of projecting Jimmy into his next phase when he goes back to Albuquerque. Like
Hmm.
you understand more about him and what his passion is and what he's good at and why he wants to like why he still wants to do it is like that's a lifestyle, you know, like and Marco is like the embodiment of that lifestyle. So I just that end of that season, with that and then with him like going by Mike and saying like, well, I'm never gonna let that shit hold me back again type of thing.
Yeah.
um, it just showed me like they were smart. The writers are smart. They're bringing the characters into places that will lead them into the steps of what we know. Like we're not there yet, but we're gonna be there. And that scene or that sequence showed me that. So but that was, I mean, the first season. I like looking back. I like I said, like they did a lot of like legwork to like make you understand the world and what the show will be and the
Yeah.
characters in it. And I think it was probably the hardest season to write. Maybe not. Maybe like the final season was or whatever. But like just the level of discovery that you have to have in that first
Right.
season, which they didn't do lazily, you know.
Right. And
It's
like they
commendable.
start you into this timeline where it's got to obviously run into Saul's timeline, but it's the journey on how they get there, you know. And they're choosing this moment to get us there, to get us started. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely. I think it had to have been like one of the more difficult things to do because you know there's going to be people scrutinizing everything. So like having that thought of, okay, how are we going to get this character, this innocent Jimmy,
Yeah.
to where he was now?
And they didn't start him at Saul. They didn't start him anywhere near Saul. You know, like
No. Yeah.
which is a huge challenge for a writer, especially one that's like doing a prequel to what an audience knows. You
Yeah.
know, like you get the temptation, I'm sure, is to start them closer to where they'll be, so then you can get there and write that. But they wanted to start with a completely different character that you've never seen before. You know, and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
high props. You know, I mean, that's more work, but more payoff. You know, in the end. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Then moving on in the second season, I think just great moment. One of my favorite moments in the show is the inflatable montage.
Oh yeah.
Where
Buying
he's
his
like,
suits and stuff.
yeah, he's trying to get fired from his job, and it's like cross-cutting that with like the colorful waving of the inflatables, and that sequence is hilarious, but it also just shows you like the de-evolution of Jimmy and
Yep.
what he'll do to get out of his like shit, and it's just great. The bagpipes, like the pooping and the not flushing.
Not flush.
Yeah. He's acting like he doesn't know what they're like. I'm just trying to save the water or whatever. But that's
Yeah.
that's like a turning point in the show, kind of too. He could have been like a really well paid lawyer, you know, like
Oh yeah.
at a great
Oh
firm,
yeah.
partner,
Yeah,
like partner track. But
When I was looking back through the episodes, that was one of the episodes, the inflation, I think is what it was called, or
inflatable.
something like that. Yeah, the inflatable. And I was like, brought me back to that time, the poop, obviously, where he
Yeah.
didn't flush and things like that. I just was like, these were such. The way the show started is such a lighter note than what we end on, you know, and
Yeah, definitely.
it's just, no, It's a great journey because it starts us off. It's like the old bait and switch, we're like, oh, this is fun, this is gonna be cool, and then of
Hmm.
course things obviously escalate. But
Yeah,
yeah,
right. That was a great
good
one.
time.
Yeah. Um, and then another big moment, I think, just looking back on the show, is Jimmy changing all the numbers on Chuck's documents. I think this is end of season 2, maybe, or close to season 3, but
I think it's end of season 2
season
when
2,
he goes to
yeah.
the copy place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's, I
yeah,
mean, a big reason why I love the show, or loved it, in the
yeah.
past, was they really wanted to show you like the process
Yeah,
of the ideas that they're like displaying. They're not going to be like just show you the end result. They're going to dig into the painstaking process that you have to go through to
right.
get to the end goal. And I mean that's where a lot of montages come in, but that's also where a lot of like fun filmmaking came in, I think, where it's like you get to show the characters in their element of sorts, like going through all those stages that they would have to go to be this good at what they're doing. And
Yeah,
so, I mean, I appreciated that moment, and that led to obviously a big moment with Chuck, like hitting his head in the copier machine.
the camera
So,
following with him.
yeah, so it was like a really good
Yeah,
payoff. One of the um, best like cut to credits moments, that when he hits his head and then it just cuts.
yeah,
This show and Breaking Bad in general have some of the best cut to credits in any show ever. Just
mm,
like the impact of all the cutting to the end, like it's some of them are cliffhangery, but like it's just so meaningful to the character every time they cut to credits, and
yeah,
it's not just like cheesiness or like flash of the story that they're cutting from. It's mostly like a turning point of sorts, which just leaves you wanting to know what's coming next in a different way, in a story
yeah.
way. I don't know.
That's what on that topic is when my buddy that's watching it again, we were talking about how he consumed it he's watched it twice now. So the first time he watched it, he's like he binged it, right? But then the second time he watched it, it was kind of like at a slower pace. But I think when we were discussing, it was like the way you consume Breaking Bad because of the way it ends. You want more, and it just feels more like a binge worthy show. I
Hmm.
don't know, just the way it's never of like a. They're all pretty much to be continued, but it's just pretty
Yeah.
much one big long. And the fact that the fact that it's like narrowed into like a 2 year time span too, and it's not like this huge time frame that things could happen. I don't know. It's just a good binge worthy show, and then like they have the best teasers. I think those in both of these
Hmm.
series. I think these are the best teasers that really get you a taste for what you want. And then I would always have the problem with same with Better Call Saul. Why I would watch a season a day is I would end an episode, start the episode up, and be like, I'll just watch the teaser. Fuck no, and then
Yeah.
I'm
You're in.
I'm hooked. I'm
Yeah.
hooked for another episode. So
Yeah. And that's just
but,
because of their great filmmaking too.
right,
Half of the time, just engaging you to watch. Like the images are
right,
just literally engaging you. So
right, because that last scene ends, cuts to credit, and then I'm like, well, I gotta know what happens next. But then that teaser gives you just what's gonna happen. Yeah,
yeah, some
it's
good,
just
good. Yep.
great.
Yep.
I agree.
Um. Yeah, and then in season 3, I think the biggest highlight for me, obviously, one of the premier moments of the show, is the chicanery episode.
Yep.
It's like the climax with Jimmy and Chuck's like both of their ideals finally like clashing, in the courtroom. One of the best acting scenes of all time with Michael McKean. That
Yeah.
speech is just great. I mean, the first time I watched that slow push, like they just trust the writing and the acting too. It's like because a slow push on an actor could be like so pretentious, but like
Yeah.
it's just like that works so well because they know that Michael McKean is gonna sell it so well, man, and he
Oh yeah.
does. And yeah, it's just I mean that moment was fantastic, and it was a huge turning point, like the point of no return for Chuck. But like
Even
it'll
Jimmy for the
yeah.
whole show, I think it was like the moment things kind of turned.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
Jimmy can't practice or whatever, and obviously for Chuck, it was a turning point for Chuck because well,
It ends with the
he was never the
lantern
same,
being
right?
kicked. Yeah. Like that's
So
where it all ends too. And I mean, overall, I just want to say that like Chuck was like the perfect antagonist to Jimmy. Like I think we've
Yeah.
talked a little bit on it or whatever, but like because he's always looking up to him and comparing. But it's like in this show, you want the perfect antagonist to be like Lalo, which he is, but the perfect antagonist to Jimmy, especially in the early seasons, is a lawman. You know, like,
Oh yeah.
and
Definitely.
it's Chuck was just the perfect counterpart to Jimmy. Like those first 3 seasons with them, their dynamic, it built so much of the show, but it also like encapsulated so much of it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, it was great.
Definitely. I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's maybe season 3 or season 4, but one of the best moments, one of the most tense moments in the show is Nacho trying to sneak the pills into Hector's pocket.
Practicing the
Yeah,
toss.
he's like practicing, and then the build up to it is perfect because you watch him practice. Then it's like on the day, got to perform type of scene,
Yeah.
you know, like, and yeah, that was one of the most tense moments. One, we don't know Nacho or how his story ends, so anything could have happened. But just with the way that sequence was laid out and the impact later that we know in the story where Hector, this is like the reason why Hector's in this condition
Yeah.
in Breaking Bad, you know, it's very meaningful too. So,
Yeah. Definitely. And I think I can't remember if it was season 3 or season 4. One of the when Gus like comes into the scene pretty heavy in terms of like
mm-hmm.
making Nacho his bitch. Because I remember shortly after the Hector, because he's in charge of Tuco, or not Tuco, the Salamanca's territory now, and he wants one more, one more,
One more bag.
yeah, one more bag of Coke.
Yeah.
And, clearly Gus comes in, and that moment where Gus establishes that he's a fucking badass, where he puts the bag over the guy's head,
And
and
watches him die. Yeah.
right, and he tells Nacho like, "You're done. You're
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 mine.
mine now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I think it's the next episode where they like drag him out into the desert and then like shoot him.
Shoot him. Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, that's a great little run there for him.
Another thing that the show really like doesn't let up on, like, they didn't have to show us that process of how Nacho was able to explain this situation to the Salamancas, or to the cartel and things like that. But it did.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
You
what I'm
could have
like.
just had an exposition, but instead we got to see it.
That's where I think the show really shines is like with the process. Like I was saying, like
Yeah.
it's just inherently interesting. Like your mind is gonna go through like how did he get to the desert? How did they stage it? So why don't you just
Yeah.
show it? Like show
Right.
the audience step by step how the painstaking. Like he takes one bullet and they shoot him again because they need it to be even more realistic. Like
Right. Right.
yeah, it's just I really like that scene too, and yeah, it's just great. And Nacho in general, I just wanted to say like he carried a lot of the soul of the show, a lot of like the unknown of the show.
Yeah.
It was just like a great like revelation of a character to have. It's based on a throwaway line, like
Right.
they built a life, out of a throwaway line, and it was beautiful and like a tragic tale. But
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, it's a great character I thought too. Super
Just some
engaging.
line that, a name that was tossed out there, him and Lalo, and they create these characters out of something they had no intent. I mean, look at Saul. He was supposed to be in 4 episodes, was it?
Yeah, 3 or
And look
4.
at his impact. Crazy.
Yep. Just shows you how, like, if you have a smart writer's like mind and you like don't sacrifice, like, don't burn your story,
Yeah.
keep things open, like you can make it happen. You can make things work.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have a few more, I guess. I just want to keep talking about it. So, Werner Ziegler, I thought was like a really good introduction to the whole world and story. Just the digging storyline in general. It brought like Gus's story back into like the forefront of everything, and kind of like process that's like an awesome to see what it would take to like get a construction crew here, like have them dig secretly, have them live in like a secret warehouse, like because you can't tell them where they are. That's just like super interesting to me in general. So like that helped, but also just like the way the storyline ended, obviously was super heartbreaking, super impactful.
Yeah, this part when Gus starts building the lab, and you really get to start to, I don't know, see a side of Gus that this was the moment that I was like, this complements Breaking Bad perfectly, because it makes me hate Walter even more. Like I'm thinking about Walter White
Yeah.
while I'm watching Better Call Saul, you know, and the fact that Gus has this passion and he is dead set on getting it done and doing it right. And when he finally gets it right, Walter fucks it up, you
Just
know,
comes
and
in and tears it all down, man.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this was a part of the show where I was like, this is probably when it ends will either be the greatest show or clearly the complimentary. You know, my second favorite. It's my second favorite. Breaking Bad's still my favorite, but
Gotcha.
this is like they're a unit. You know,
Yeah.
I count them pretty much as equals. But
Yeah.
at that moment is when I was like, when I started thinking about how this complements Breaking Bad, and you know, me caring about Gus on a whole new level that I didn't really care about
Yeah.
in Breaking Bad. You know, and I was just like, this is gonna give Breaking Bad a run for its money. This show that touched me so.
Yeah.
You know, so it was just like this is where it really was like, damn, this is fucking sweet.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah.
Another moment I have, which kind of feels like Breaking Bad, or kind of brought in the Breaking Bad of it all, was the Bagman. Like few run of that episodes. That it's like we're inching towards Breaking Bad in timeline and also in like
Hmm.
tone. You know, it's like
Yeah.
this show probably will blend perfectly. Like just like it starts zany, starts a little more upbeat and comedy, and then slowly descends to like darkness and a little bit more drama, and then when you get to Breaking Bad, it descends even farther. You know, like
Oh yeah.
so
Yeah.
like it's I think it's like just perfectly threaded, and the Bagman part where Saul's like brought to like a PTSD like crime moment, I think it was needed obviously to bring him to Saul, but also just really fun to kind of explore the desert of it all and the Breaking
Yeah.
Bad of it all. I know Vince Gilligan directed that episode too, so it was like kind of brought it back home a little bit, you know, with that. But
Yeah. No, definitely. I as I was reminiscing on the Better Call Saul, I was writing down. I wanted to, you know, try to figure out my top 5 episodes, and I mentioned this to you before. I don't know if it was recorded or not, but like, I wish that these last 4 episodes, because the last 3, you know, Tom Schnauz, Vince Gilligan, Peter Gold. I wish Michelle McLaren was in one of those, but she's actually in my top 5 for, well, my one of my favorite episodes this season. Nippy, you know, she directed that one.
yeah,
But like she has some of my favorite, all 3 of those guys and Peter Gold from Better Call Saul. Not so much Breaking Bad, but they have my favorite, you know, my favorite episodes and stuff. And yeah, there's a trend in my top 5, and it was Tom Schnauz, Michelle McLaren, Vince Gilligan. Those were like my top 5. They were all Tom Schnauz, Vince Gilligan, or Michelle. So
yeah, people that they trust the most with the story, I'm
right,
sure, you know.
right. So that was, yeah, and Bagman, that's up there with my favorite. That is my favorite. That's my number 1. You know, that one, and my third favorite is Bad Choice Road, the one directly after that.
Yeah,
I
for
think those
sure.
complement each other pretty perfectly, you know.
Hmm.
But those were the moments where I was just like, I watched those. I remember first episodes I ever bought because I was in Texas and I didn't really have any means of watching them. So I was like, I'm desperate. So I bought them on my phone and I just sat there in the little room and watched it on my phone at night.
Yeah,
You know, not the way to consume media, but probably
gotta do
frowned
what you
upon.
gotta
But
do, you know.
yeah. So yeah,
Love the
those
show.
have a special place in my heart there.
Nice.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
That was a hype for me. So
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Yeah, I just have like one more specific moment, and that was from this last season. And it's just the execution of Howard Hamlin, man. Like that.
that's my number 2.
Yeah, that
Plan and
shit
execution.
that shit stuck with me, man. Still sticks with
Mm-hmm.
me. Like it's
Chilling.
shocking, chilling, but also it's like the climax of the entire like main like storyline, like the main
Yeah.
run or whatever. That's where it all comes to at the end. So it's extremely impactful, also. But yeah, the plan execution and the episode after that, which is
Not fun and games.
no, yeah, I can't remember.
Point and shoot.
Point and shoot. Those 2 episodes together, like man, what a pair, dude. Like
Oh yeah.
they
No, I agree.
perfect television. I mean, straight up.
Yeah.
But
That episode so well paced from the beginning to the end. You start off with a zany, fun Jim and Kimmy
yeah, the last
situation.
kind of.
Yeah. And it's so like the heart pounding. You're like, oh, what's gonna happen? You know, this whole time, and then it gets to the end, and you're just left there to think about it for fucking 3 months or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And
great.
then like Kim like getting sent to go kill Gus, man, just like the tension in some of those moments, and like starting with the zany and then ending with like the grave with Howard
Yeah.
and Lalo. Man, it's just like, yeah, those are like perfect episodes and the end of so much, you know. So like, I don't know. I mean, this whole like the last 7 episodes of the show are all perfect and extremely like memorable, and I could have said I would like to talk about them all in those moments, you know, but
Yeah.
just those two. Just the execution of Howard and like the cleanup and the after effects of all that was obviously huge. So
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that they landed the fuck out of this plane. I think it was. I don't think it could have ended any other way. It was perfect,
yeah,
and
sure.
the greatest 15 years of storytelling, and it was kind of cool to be a part of it. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just I just wanted to say like I remember the first time I was like watching the end of The Walking Dead, which was like my favorite show at the time with my buddy.
Ooh,
Yeah,
unlucky.
yeah. I mean, I was into it. This was like the peak of Walking Dead, like quality
Yeah.
though too. So I was like,
No, I was into it for like 4 seasons. So
right. I was in a sweet spot still, but I was just like chilling with my buddy, like at his place, and then it was like DVR'd. So then it started playing the next show on, which was Better Call Saul, the first episode. And I was like, I had no, I had it like recording at my house, so I didn't even know if I was gonna watch it. I had like no real like interest to like come back to this universe. And then like I just sat there and like watched the opening, which is like the black and white opening with Saul working at Cinnabon. It's
yeah,
like a joke. Like it's a joke from the finale of Breaking Bad. Like, you know,
best case scenario.
yeah, he's working there in Omaha,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, man. I remember something in that moment like hooking me. Like the Walking Dead episode was like, sure, that was fine, but then this started, and like the cinematography of it all, the black and white, like the the colorful like reflection of the video in his glasses. It just like it made me laugh, but it also had like this sadness and this drama, and it mostly just like gave me intrigue. Like that was the main thing I got from it, and it
Yeah.
made me want to discover like what this universe still had to offer and what it had to say with the show. And I immediately like knew that I was going to go home and watch it after that. And ever since like that moment hooked me, and I'm so glad that I continued with it
Yeah.
with that intrigue. And yeah, I don't know. It just led us
Paid
here.
off.
Yeah, it led us. I mean, led me on one of the best journeys of any type of media that I've ever had. So
Definitely. Yep. The Gilligan verse strikes again.
yeah, I can't wait
It's
to see what any of these guys do next.
yeah.
I will be there.
I hear Vince got something in the works. He's got
Yeah,
some studios lined up to buy it, you know, and
cool.
yeah, so be interested to
Yeah, I'm
see what
there.
happens. See if the crew sticks together and they make great
Yeah,
content again,
right.
you know.
Well, we'll be there for the next thing, right? Maybe we'll discuss that and
Fuck yeah,
see what that'll be. So
I'm here for it all.
yeah. Well,
But
thanks for listening, guys. Hope you guys watch Better Call Saul, but come back when you're at the end of it and come listen to the discussions, because you have to have somebody here to digest it with. So
yeah, and let justice reign till the heavens fall.
later,
Yep.
guys.